Hi, good evening. Thank you for joining me. If you've joined me so far, welcome to another Ferndale Live. And tonight we're going to be talking and showing you how to do successful hanging baskets. It's been really chilly recently. It has improved somewhat, but could be a lot better. But we are coming into warmer times and we will get better weather. So that's the good news. And so we're going to go through some of the tips you can use, and you can ask questions as you go along. You just have to ask questions in the comment box on YouTube or Facebook, and I can see them here on the screen. And I will answer them as we go along. We have a prize draw at the end, and you need to remember the little, I'm just going to put this as a banner. Let's create a banner there. You need to put this hashtag into Facebook or YouTube, and there will be a prize for people watching live. So if you're watching on recording later, then it won't actually work because it's for people watching live tonight. So we should be able to show that now. There we go. Don't think we really needed ticking, do we? So it might just, I probably can't stop it now. Anyway, so let's get going. Plants, all plants need water, food and light. And light's not generally a problem, although shade can be a problem with hanger baskets, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But if you don't get the water and the food right, you're not going to get the growth right. So I'm just going to adjust something because I have to flick that up there. That's good. All right, be with you in a second. Right. And we're gonna go through some slides which have got some pictures in. You can watch this again later if you forget anything I've said or aren't sure, then you can have a look. And also you can have a look or ask questions afterwards, and I will try and pick them up afterwards. So you want a hanging basket that looks like that. That is full of flower and just looks great. But it's not always as easy because people don't know the basics. So the basics, remember, water, food and light. If you get the watering, the food right, and pretty much the light, then you won't go too far wrong. I'm just going to knock out that little logo up there to make it easier for you. Here we go. So we'll go through these slides. I hope to have had a video to show you me putting a basket together. There is one, and I will drop this onto Facebook afterwards with a little explanation of what's going on. But I've had some problems with that just before we went on air, which is typical, isn't it? Listen to me on air. How professional are we? So let's get going. Here we go. The various types of baskets. So the classic hanging basket in the UK, and it's pretty much a British thing. The Americans are starting to catch on to it, is this wire basket. Lots of holes in. Of course, you can't put compost in that because it's going to fall apart. And when traditionally they're lined, and you can just see that if you're watching on your phone, it'll be tricky. But if you're watching on a screen, you can see that the old-fashioned, the traditional way of lining a basket was with this moss. So that's sphagnum moss collected from woods and sometimes on the moors. You needed a special license to do it. It's quite hard to get if it's chucking it down or we've been in lockdown. But there are better and easier and cleaner ways to do that now. So unless you've got loads of the moss you've raked out of your lawn, which you could use, then I would suggest you go for something like these coir liners. Now the coir liners are good because they're pre-molded already. Coir is the hairy bit on the outside of a coconut shell. A lot of it's getting used in compost now, but a lot of it is put together as these stringy pieces and stuck together with like the rubbery solution from rubber trees, and it holds it in place, forms the lining. You can put the compost inside there. And of course, I'm going to include the wicker basket. It's very popular, easy to plant. And also you can get a rattan, a plastic version of that now. And the real wicker ones are good in one sense, that they rot down, but at the same time, eventually they collapse. Both have plastic linings in, which we'll come back to. And if I don't come back to it, remind me. Don't forget, you can ask questions as we go along. Just put them in the comments box and we'll pick them up to give you some feedback as well. So there are types of pots and baskets. So we've talked about the rattan basket and the wire basket, but also including this plastic hanging pots and even these sort of hang over the balcony type containers. They're not as big. You can literally just drop plants into them, but again, very useful. You've got to remember water, food, and light, and you get success with those. But with the baskets and the hanging pots, they're obviously bigger. They're obviously they hold more compost, and that's very much an advantage. So when it comes to composts, you can buy ready-made composts that are suitable for hanging baskets. Now, this one from Miracle-Gro is called Moisture Control because it has a built-in moisture retention aid. Normal compost, when it dries out, forms a hard crust. When you come to water it, the water runs off the hard crust on the top, and that then runs all the way around the outside of the basket. It doesn't actually get into the middle of the basket, and it also usually runs down your arms and all over your feet. Now, with the moisture control baskets, two big advantages. One is they stay moist longer, so that the plants can have the moisture when they want it. It holds the extra moisture, and the compost will release it as the roots want it. The other thing is, because the compost isn't drying out, when you come to re-water, it actually takes the water straight in, and it sort of recharges the little reservoir that's built into that. You can use normal compost. So I happen to be using 2 peat-free as an example here. And in the Miracle-Gro one there, it has got quite a lot of food in it, but you can add extra food, and you can see the Grow Sure slow release plant food there that comes in this jar and also in a box. And you can add your own moisture control agent. So you can take a normal compost, add the slow release food, and which we'll come on to in a minute, and this moisture retention material. It swells up. It can absorb up to 400 times its own size, original size. So really good to add into other pots. And anything I say here about hanging baskets applies to patio pots as well. But obviously they're not in such extreme conditions as a hanging basket. We are asking a lot of plants when we take them from ground level and try and hang them up to 6, 7, 8 feet above us, swinging around in the wind in baking hot sun, and no chance of getting any respite from the hot temperatures. Feeding your baskets, I mentioned the Grow Sure granule. I've got it here. You'll see from the picture, and I can show you again later, that the granules are different colors. And these are really clever granules, really clever feeding. They feed for up to 6 months, and they work by having a variety of fertilizers, which are then coated in resin. And the resin lets water in, but once it's in there, it holds it in there until the temperature is warm enough for the little pores that are in the resin to open up and release the food. So as the temperature goes up, more food is released. As the temperature drops, it holds onto its food. And the different colors release at different times. So one of them will release for a month, one will release for 3 months, and one will release for the end of the period. The other way of growing is to use a hanging basket liquid feed. And that just means you have to feed more regularly. It's probably once a week when you're watering. The slow release granules are good because it actually means you don't have to remember to feed. You just have to remember to water. Now, plants take their food up through their roots, and food can only get into the roots when it's dissolved in the water. So if you underwater, and we'll come back to watering in a bit, plants can't get the food even if you've put enough in there. On the back of a packet of fertilizer, there's all sorts of instructions, like how many to put in the compost, how many, when to use it, and so on. But also on the side of the packet is this section, which is like a statutory set of information, but it's really a useful tool if you understand it. On this panel on the side of the packet, which we've got enlarged here, you can see that there's this little ratio in that yellow disc, and on this particular one, which is these granules, which I'll shake again, it says 12, 7, 19. Now you see just to the left of the yellow circle, it says EC fertilizer, NPK fertilizer. NP and K stands for nitrogen, phosphate, and K stands for potash. And the ratio of NP and K is 12, 7, 19. 12 units of nitrogen, 7 units of phosphate, and 19 of potash. That's the K. So a high potash food is always high in the K number. So the higher the K, the higher the potash. What's really important there is that the potash contributes You can see the 3 ratios there in the description of how they make it up. The potash is what promotes flowers. So flowers and fruit, really useful if you have plants that aren't flowering, camellias, rhododendrons, azaleas. This slow release food is really good. You can use liquid feeds on them as well at the right time. The right time for spring flowering plants to put high potash food on is June, late June particularly, and it builds the flowers up for the following year. But in hanging baskets particularly, this high potash food, so that's NP and K, where the K is the highest number, really important. And if you can remember that and use that, you'll get amazing results when other people don't. Some of the liquid feeds, some of the well-advertised liquid feeds are great when there's no feed at all, but they don't always produce a lot of flowers. And things like chicken manure, which is very high in nitrogen relatively, is not very good at producing flowers. If you're not careful and use chicken manure on shrubs, you'll end up with plants that have lots of green foliage and very little flower. So the warning there. So choosing plants, there's the 2 places we talked about light earlier on, sun or shade. So you can see there, petunias, geraniums, calibrachoas, sometimes called million bells, love the sun. And shade-loving plants include fuchsias, busylilies, and lobelia. Now, it doesn't mean you can't use those in the sun, but they actually thrive in shade. So if you've got a shady side of the house and you want to do a hanging basket or a planted tub and it doesn't get much sun, go for fuchsias, busylilies, and lobelia. And the good news with busylilies is a lot of new varieties now available which don't suffer from downy mildew, which virtually wiped them out about 10 years ago. So there's various ways of getting your plants. You can get them in the 6 packs, sometimes 12 packs, sometimes 9 packs, sometimes 4 packs. And these give you quite a lot of plants, good value for your money, and usually as in one variety, or we'd recommend if you're going for a mix pack, go for what we call a designer mix. It's only got 3 colors in it and they're selected to look better. You can have these pots of bigger plants, often in flower. So that could include these new petunias that have been out the last couple of years, which are called the Sky series. But you can also have lots of trailing plants that will hang over the edge of pots and baskets, and you put those in individually. They're very useful. And then you also get these are new in the last 5 years, like a trio pot. This one's called Confetti. It's a brand name. You've got 3 different colors in them. I'll show you some more in a minute. And they're a great way, very quick way of creating a basket or a hanging basket, color sorted for you already. They're big pots, bigger pots, so you don't need to buy as many plants. They're a little bit more expensive, but actually, because you don't need to buy as many plants to make the effect, and they're quicker to give you the effect, that they're as good value as buying the 6 packs that are there on the left. So you'll remember from the picture early on that we've got the top and side planting in a traditional moss basket, and you can do it with the coir basket. You can see it here, where you cut a hole in the liner and you can push small pack plants through. Lobelia is a really good one to push through the side there because the roots are usually very compact, very tight, and they're easy to repot. Or top planting, it's really essential that it hangs right over the basket, otherwise you see a lot of basket. So if you've got a hanging pot, or even with a coir pot, but particularly a rattan pot, you need to get lots of trailing plants over the edge, and they've got to be lush so that you don't just see underneath. That picture's been deliberately taken to look underneath, but you're looking to cover the whole basket. Looking after your basket, watering, you can use a hose pipe. Anything that actually gets the water over the top of the basket is a good idea. This is the hose lock watering lance. It's got an adjustable head on it and extendable as well. When you're watering with a hose pipe, make sure you hold the water on for a long time, because otherwise you won't put enough water in. And if you're using the water holding compost, or you've added it yourself, they will take the water in quicker and better, and you won't get so wet yourself. But you can also put in irrigation systems. This one's shown again by a hose lock on a patio set. You can hide the pipes, you don't have to hold them. But you'll see these on the outside of pubs. They're fitted to the wall permanently, and you can put them along the bracket of your hanging basket or along the top of your fence. You can have timers, and if you've got a lot of baskets, a lot of pots, worth the investment, because they'll last for years. And they can even water while you're on holiday, which can be a problem if you ask neighbours to do it, because they often trust the rain. And the rain isn't enough in the summer for baskets particularly, or tubs. So feeding, we mentioned, these slow release feeds are really good. Liquid feeds are good. Sometimes the slow release feeds run out at the end of the year, end of the summer if you've had a hot summer and they've let the food out earlier. But you can top them up with a liquid feed, a high potash feed, perhaps in late August, September, to keep them going into October and November sometimes. And afterwards, looking after your basket. And it's actually during the growing season. When you've planted a basket, don't hang it up straight away. Stand it on a pot. It's a good idea to plant them stood on a pot because it's easier for the to hold the basket still. But stand the basket on a pot, an empty pot, on the ground for a week to 10 days before hanging it up. Because it's warmer, there's less wind down at ground level, you'll get the roots will establish much, much quicker. And you can then hang the basket up. Now, if you're planting early and there's still warnings of frost, you can bring the basket in at night when it's sat on a pot. But from now on, there should be less chance of frost. But if you give it that week to 10 days, sat on a pot, watering it well, you can keep an eye on it. Then once it's started to establish, after about a week to 10 days, you can hang it up. Now, I've shown this picture because the top basket needed the ends trimming and snipping early on, and it should look like the bottom basket. So it's best not to let them get long and straggly and then cut them back because they take a while to recover. But it's keep taking the tips out. Just pinch them off with your fingertips or a pair of scissors, and they'll get bushier and bushier, and you'll get the benefit of the bit on the bottom. Right, that's the end of that. Let me just get rid of that. So, I hope that's been helpful so far. No questions from anybody. I don't know whether the system's working, and no one's actually put Love Ferndale in, because what I have for you this week is this is a trio pot. Now you see it's better than the picture. So you've got 3 different varieties already chosen for you, all color themed already. I'm gonna, if anybody puts, we'll do a little draw in a few minutes, puts Love Ferndale in there, your name will pop up, and what should do, and I will draw somebody from that. And if it doesn't, if I can't see it for some strange reason, I will do it afterwards. And if you're local, you can collect 3 of these. You can collect 3 of the choice of your own, and 1 of these. So you get your slow release food as well. There. But actually, what we'll do is we'll do it in that way, in the box that's up here, because you get 50% extra for the same price as a jar. You can use it in all sorts of things. That food, all your baskets, all your tubs, great for long plantings like long-lasting plantings like box plants and so on. So here's a good example of a really well coloured collection. That's fairly cool. You can go for hot colours. They're not fully out yet, but you've got 3 different hot colours there which you can push together. And this one, sort of a pastel-y shade. The label is a general label. So you've got 3 different types of plants: Calibricoa, a verbena, and another Calibricoa there, a single one. Get some light on it would help, wouldn't it? Ready planted, and then a sort of an in-between. You've got the white flowers in baskets are fantastic because you can it lifts all the other colors. So if you've got to do some filling out on baskets, get some white plants in there. So lovely pale little Australian daisy, Calibricoa again. This was called Million Bells, and they changed it to the stupid name of Calibricoa, but call it Million Bells. And again, a verbena, which will flower and flower and flower. So again, a good combination. Also, this is just a pot of 3 Calibricoas. So yellow, purple, and red, sort of really hot, vibrant colours. You can pick on those. Now, we talked about packs, and this is a lobelia pack. These are good for filling in. This is trailing lobelia. And when you take them out of these little segments, you get these really good root systems. So really good for tucking in between when you're doing a planting in the side, sticking them in the top and letting them trail over. When you're planting at the top, the ones on the edge, plant them at an angle. Make sure that you cover this area up with compost so you can't see it. But if you put them at an angle, as the top plants grow above them, they will push out. Just show you like that. They'll start to push the lobelia out around the edge, over the edge. So it's a really good way of giving extra filling in there. Now you'll see a lot of videos where on hanging baskets, loads on YouTube, where they leave lots of space, and it was always felt like planting in the garden that leaving lots of space meant they could grow in there. And we found exactly the opposite. The more plants you get in, the happier they are, because when they're happy, the plants are just looking after each other. As a microclimate develops, and they just grow better. So if you've got any gaps, just put a few of these small plants in, they'll bush out in between. Great to see Karen and Nicola have put Love Ferndale in there. That's supposed to be hashtag, but I'll let you off this time. Anybody else want to join in? Feel free. Live only, not when you're watching it later. So we're coming towards the end. Anybody got any questions? I'll happily add those in. Just checking I've not got anything I've missed. Hanging baskets are really simple if you get things right. You've got to have plenty of water, because the water is the only way the plants can take the food up. You need to give them high potash food, so that will give you lots and lots of flowers. And the slow release ones, like in this jar, the Grow Sure one. Now, there are lots of others of these on the market, and we particularly favor this one because this is very high in potash and gives you a lot more flowers. So use the slow release granules, mix it into the compost if it's not already. Some of them already have it in. And then make sure you water regularly. Use the water holding agents. Either you can add it in, or it may be in the compost already. Moisture Control by Miracle Grow, their compost already has that in, but you can add it to any other compost. Pinch the ends out regularly so that you can get them to be nice and bushy plants. And then you should have a really good basket. Just remember this last tip. As I mentioned, stand them on a pot on the ground for about a week to 10 days so that the roots start to mesh together and get going. And then when they've started to root through, the plants are much more robust, they're stronger, they're getting used to the new compost. Then you can hang them into position, and just remember to make sure you water them well. Good. You could ask any questions like Pam has here. Have you got any tumbling tomatoes or strawberries? Loads of strawberries in. We've been buying them by the 100 because we know they're going to be in short supply soon. And the tumbling tomatoes are not here yet, but they should be here by the end of the week. And it should just coincide with a reasonably good weather for putting them in pots and baskets. Tumbling tomatoes, you can put strawberries or tumbling tomatoes into hanging baskets. Exactly the same principle, but they need plenty of moisture. They need the food. Use high potash food again. You can use the slow release food. You can use tomato food on the tomatoes. Just make sure that they're well established before you hang them up, particularly the tomatoes. One thing I didn't talk about was the size of the basket. So on many hanging pots, they're quite small. They're about 8 to 10 inches across. Now, this is a 14-inch or 35-centimeter basket. The next size down is 12 inches. The difference in volume of compost is double just on the extra 2 inches on the basket. So it's better to plant a 14-inch or 35-centimeter basket than it is to plant a 12-inch basket, because it'll dry out too much. There's less root growth. So if you haven't done that before, invest in the slightly bigger baskets. You'll have to put more compost in and a few more plants probably, but definitely worth the agony of not having them dry out. Think about adding automatic irrigation if you're going to be away. If you do go away and you ask neighbours to water, tell them, really good watering tip, tell them to water even if it's rained. The problem with hanging baskets particularly is they're often up under the eaves, particularly, or on they're not getting the rain. The rain will hit the wall and not the basket. And actually also rain will, once it's as full as some of the pictures I showed you, the water will run off the foliage and not get into the basket. So they just ask them, can you make sure you water every day, even if it's rained, because it's very dry where I've got them. So any other questions before I let you go? I'm sure you'll be delighted to know that Boris has still allowed restaurants, coffee shops and pubs to open and be let you in from Monday. If you are thinking of coming to Ferndale, we've had so many people asking when we're opening that I have a feeling that Monday and Tuesday and the first few days will be rammed. So it may pay either to come early in the morning, late in the afternoon, or give us a bit of a time before it settles down into a friendly pattern. We still have to have spacing, and there are restrictions for everybody within restaurants and catering, so it won't be the full capacity, unfortunately. But we'll get to the other side of this. Just a note as well, if you obviously wear a mask in the building, but outside you can take your masks off because it's fresh air. It's like being in the park. So anybody else, any more questions before we go? And then I will just pick a random number. Oh, and Karen's corrected her Love Ferndale. I was going to let you off anyway, Karen, so that's really good. So And they picked from what we've got 1, 2, 3, just 4 of you. Oh, 3 of you, even better. So I'm going to go number 2, and it's Rachel Naylor. So Rachel, send me a message via Facebook, because you're on Facebook, I can see that. Send a message to say, I'm Rachel Naylor, and I'll reply to it. And then when you come in, you can say, I've come to claim my plants, and I'll tell all the stuff this weekend. And you can come and choose your own colorways. You can. I'd advise don't mix in the hot and the cold or the cool together. Pick some easy ones to do. Just another tip on these. So that's ready loaded like that. If you were to fill a pot, say about a 12-inch flower pot with compost, not right to the top, and drop that in at the top, it's almost going to cover the top of the pot straight away. That will be the quickest and easiest garden you've ever done. Do this, follow the rules on the food and the watering, but I don't think, apart from planting bulbs, you can go any easier than that. And these new modern pots are 100% recyclable. You can put them in your curbside collections, and the council sometimes deny they can take them, but they can actually take them and process them. They're all already recycled, and they will recycle again. So look for these grey beige pots. They can all go in your bottle bins. So great, thanks for being there. If you've got any more questions, you can ask them later and I'll try and pick them up. I will sort this video problem out and put a little commentary over it. It was literally what I've been saying, but I was going to show how to do it, and technology beat me today. So great, thanks for being there, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.